Steve Prescott's hands up! For Steve Prescott's hands up! For Steve Prescott's hands up!
Welcome to Serious About Rugby League. Today on the agenda we are talking about the new hot topic, should we be taking Rugby League over the pond? Rugby League Chief Executive Robert Elston says, I think the jury is out on sustainability, intent, logistic and the impact on the overall cake. Sean, what is your point of view on this one?
I'm a massive pro expansion. Let's expand the game. Let's get it out into the world. I think a lot of people are sceptical about the idea of a American culture or what American fans want from the game. I completely disagree. I think Toronto proves that there is a massive want for it. Maybe not for the rugby league itself, but for sport. Over in North America, they really love just watching sport and supporting their hometown or city. And people are going to always argue about the away support and what logistically what's going to help for the Super League competition, whether it's going to get the gate money in and stuff. I think you've got to look at it from the point of view that over in North America they are very much used to professional sport not having away supporters. They're used to having 20, 30, 40,000 people in a stadium that are all home fans, because you can't afford to get a play into a different game every week or every other week. So away fans are few and far between, and it'll be people that are just in the area or happen to be from somewhere else and are living in a different area, so they go and watch their side.
So you think for overall it's going to be a positive benefit for the sport?
Oh yeah, I think that overall, we might not see it in the next couple of years, but overall in the next 5-10 years, as the game starts to grow, as in sort of like the intent of the game starts to grow and the popularity starts to grow, people get more involved, and you will pick up some great athletes from America, because obviously, as we know from various sports across the world, including athletics, there are a lot of different athletes that are the top of the game that are from the United States or Canada, and you'll be able to pick up some of those athletes.
And Ian, do you agree with this?
I completely disagree.
Tell us why.
I think New York and Ottawa, I don't think it's been researched properly. I don't think there's any proper planning in place. Just over a year ago, I interviewed Hull KR chairman Neil Hudgell about, and the subject of Toronto came up, and he said at that time that there hadn't been enough due diligence done, that there wasn't enough planning in the logistics of it all and all the rest of it. He said, I think expansionism fits, and I don't have a problem with going to Catalan, that's fine by me. I think going over to Canada and America, I think you're taking the sport away from its roots, you're taking it away from the supporters that have supported it for years, and let's not forget, Rugby League does not exist without supporters. Mm-hmm. And if you're taking the game away from them like that, I think they'll start to vote with their feet.
Do you agree? Do you think that would be the case?
A lot of people are talking about taking it away from the homeland. Yeah, and what at this point? And what? Let's be honest. Let's look at the Super League attendances the way it is. Toronto are going to average a higher Super League attendance than half of the league, and that's fact. So how are we taking it away from fans when there's more fans going to games in Canada than there would be in the UK?
Do you think Toronto's been successful?
I think there's arguments in favour of it, yeah. But I think, Toronto, it's in Canada. Why can't they start a Canadian league and play in the league in Canada? Like we have a league in Poland where Polish teams play. You don't find Polish teams saying, oh, we want to come and play in Super League. I know Red Star Belgrade played in the Challenge Cup, but that's its own thing. What you're talking about here is real sustainability, and I don't think, you look at, even you've got Catalan, when they come over to play an English side, they maybe bring half a dozen fans with them at most. Are you really wanting to sacrifice a club like possibly a Leeds, who are struggling against relegation right now? If Leeds went down and Toronto came up, what does that do to every other Super League team's attendances on the weekend that they play Toronto instead of Leeds? Do you not think
it's important to give other teams internationally the opportunity there? Like we have done Catalan, like we have done expand in Toronto. Why would we not do it for New York then?
I mean, if you look at the NRL, they've done it for Auckland, New Zealand Warriors. You know, a Catalan is our version of that.
Yeah.
I don't see them letting in teams from New York or Toronto into the NRL. You know, and I suppose at the end of the day, the game is an English game, and you know.
You want to keep it.
Yeah, let's expand it in England. You know, let's make expansion sensible. You know, look at maybe places like a Derby or a Nottingham or a Birmingham. You know, places like that where you know you can expand to sensibly, if you like.
Well, that takes me into our next subject. Would the RL team work in Liverpool?
I mean.
What do we think?
This is more difficult because you're talking about a city that has a lot of history and passion for football.
Yeah.
And obviously you've got that in certain areas in Rugby League where you've got Leeds, and Leeds United are a very famous football team. You've got Salford obviously connected to Manchester City as well, and Manchester's obviously massive football. But like for Liverpool, I think it's slightly different in that. They've got 3 professional football teams. One of them's obviously a much lower down now, but in Everton and Liverpool, you've got 2 of the most historic and most famous football clubs, not only in this country but around the world. And expanding into that sort of market, although I am for it, will take some serious work because there's going to be a much lower level of interest in a place like Liverpool where everybody wants to be Steven Gerrard or everyone wants to be Duncan Ferguson or whatever the star is for whichever team you support. Over in America, there's the love for sport is much higher, just across the board. Like you don't love one sport, you love sport. In the UK, you tend to find in places it's a love for one sport above anything else. And I think in Liverpool, you've got one of those places that the love for football is so high.
Yeah.
I think with Liverpool, you're not expanding very far, are you? You've got, you know, just down the road from them, you've got St Helens, you've got Wigan, you've got Salford. I think... Which
is very heavy at Rugby League already.
Yes.
In those areas.
What I think... Liverpool, it could possibly work, but when you say, like you say, there is too much football in that area, and, you know, you've got, like... For argument's sake, look at Salford. They keep trying to jump on the back of this massive audience that they could have in Manchester. They renamed themselves after Manchester United, the Red Devils. You know, what has it actually done for them? You know, they're getting crowds of what 1,500, 2,000. You know, it's not. You know, trying to jump on the back of football is not working for them. You know, Wigan, St Helens, they have their own market. St Helens maybe slightly more because, of course, Wigan, like my team, Hull FC, share a ground with a football team. It's not so difficult for us because, you know, we have this strange relationship with the stadium management company that also owns Hull City, but because of recent years, you know, almost the demise of Hull City, you know, we haven't had to compete with them so much. When they were in the Premier League, we couldn't compete with them. You know, I just don't see Liverpool Rugby League really taking off because it's like you said, there's too much. You know, you've got Liverpool and Everton there; they're 2 of the most famous clubs in the world. You know, everybody knows about them.
So let's look in the future now. Imagine these clubs do get that sustainability; they get that go-ahead. What do you think to New York City versus Liverpool? Does that go against everything you want, Ian?
Well, no, I just don't think. I don't think there's the market for rugby league in New York. You know, New York is New York. It's its own place and it's got its own identity. New York against Liverpool in the Super League. Nah, that won't fit for me.
So? What do you
not
think,
in the
Sean?
slightest.
I think you look at New York and it's a hotbed for sport. You've got the Jets, the Giants, the Rangers, the Knicks, and everybody supports everybody. I think if you throw rugby league, obviously we're not gonna go and fill the stadium like the Giants do or the Jets do.
But who's to say we might?
Well,
we might.
Over years, maybe. Obviously not straight away. You can't expect it. Much like in Toronto. Toronto will go and support the Raptors or the CFL team whose name I don't know. But they won't turn up in the same amount of numbers to watch rugby league at first. But as we saw last weekend, 10,000 people turned up to Toronto to watch a championship match. So there's a marketability for fans that love sport, that love just going out with their friends, having a few drinks, watching sport. And if you can take that to their city, they'll get on board. Whether you create more long-term problems having games like New York, Liverpool, you've got to
I'm
take into account.
I'm sorry to interrupt, but it all just seems a bit too much hit and miss for me. It's, if you're going to support a club, you need to go and support them week in, week out, like we all do, and not just hope that they're in the mood to go and watch some rugby league that day, rather than go and watch your baseball or whatever else.
The thing is, you've got to take into account this is not the UK. They don't have the same sporting culture that we have. Okay, in this country,
arguably you could say that they are even better at their sporting culture.
100%, because they want to go and watch sport, and they'll do it week in, week out because they want to do it, not because it's their team or you'll get fans going to London away, or you go to Salford away some weeks and you're just like, I don't really want to go, but I'm just going to go because it's my team. You don't get that in America. They want to go and watch sport. They want to get out and see a team. If the sun's out, it's even better. So I think you can't market it in the same way you're going to market it in the UK for it to work. You have to just market it as a sport, as a New York brand, and people will get on board.
It says here, it feels like rugby league in general is a very untapped sport that's ready to take off. If you look at what Eddie and Barry Hearn have done with boxing and darts, they've made it huge again. Rugby league has the potential, it just needs that excitement about it. So is it the possibility that it could work, but people like yourself, Ian, are not willing to do that change because you want to keep it to England, or...?
It's not so much that, I just think, rugby league has that potential, with the product on the field, not by having to think about going transatlantic, or, football has the Champions League. They go into Europe, they don't go to play regular games every other week across the other side of the world.
So Ian, I can tell you're clearly not in favour of this expansion.
You don't say.
Have a think back to where clubs like, Hull FC, Leeds Rhinos, St Helens, before they had this massive following, did they start off to not be just a small club that people started gathering and then word of mouth came about, and now look at them? So does it not have a potential to do that? Yeah,
but the difference is that St Helens, Wigan, Hull FC, Leeds, Castleford and all the rest of them, they're all a few miles away from each other, not thousands of miles across the Atlantic Ocean.
Well, exactly. So do we not need to expand that if we're just clearly playing in one area?
I think we need to expand it, but I think we need to expand it in a sustainable way that will work. I don't see... we had a team in Paris. That didn't last. We had a team in Wales. That didn't even last. What on earth is going to make a team in New York or Ottawa last?
I think the fans, and that is the big thing, the fans. Okay, let's talk about the Toronto team. You talk about there's lack of Canadians in that team. Yeah, it's only just taking off over there. It will be a while. You've got to get it into the schools and bring it through. You can't expect 15, 16-year-olds to pick it up and become professional players straight away. It doesn't happen. But the difference is that in Wales, at the Celtic Crusaders, you were seeing attendances of 2,000 or 3,000, if that. In Toronto, you're seeing attendances of 10,000, and there's no away fans. It's just 10,000 Toronto.
I understand that, but I know people who go and watch Hull FC wherever they play every week. There's a few of them that will travel all over the place. They cannot afford to be going to places like Ottawa, New York, Toronto, travelling transatlantic 3, 4, 5, 6 times a year. We're already saying, in the game, there's already this thought that the Challenge Cup is almost dying because we didn't get much of an attendance last year. We didn't get much of an attendance the year before between Hull and Wigan. Because And people say, well, it's because they're having to spend too much on going to Magic and too much on going to the grand final. You know, now you're asking them to go and spend a small fortune going transatlantic 3 or 4 times a year. What on earth is that going to do to something like the Challenge Cup or the grand final? You know, how are you going to get fans across from Toronto or from New York to come and see their team playing at Wembley or at Old Trafford?
My final point would be that you've got to take into account the culture differences. We've spoken a lot in a lot of different on the agendas about the culture of British Rugby League. I'm a massive American sports fan, so I watch American sports most days. Obviously, the basketball season being 2 or 3 days at a time, and you've got to take into account if we're gonna do this, if we're gonna open Rugby League to the world, we're gonna have to not be football. And I think this idea of constant support in this country comes from football. Even just look at America, look at Australia in the NRL. The difference between the fan bases in the UK and in the NRL, and the travelling distances, etc., and the away support differences, etc. That's because the culture is just different. We're hanging on to this idea of we have to support our team week in, week out. We have to go everywhere. You don't. You don't have to do it. If you can go to all your home games, if every single fan that goes to a game every year just goes to all the home games instead of going to all the away games, most teams would have a really healthy attendance, but they don't. They spend the money, they go to a few away games and they don't go to any home games. Maybe we should be looking at taking this American culture back.
But I mean, this whole American culture, the New York, Ottawa, Toronto thing, all part of this is it's being sold to us as it's an experience. You know, it's the experience project, if you like. You know, go and experience this. You know, so they're wanting people to travel over there, and I'm just, you know, I mean, we had the obviously the controversy about the Challenge Cup when they were asking Toronto and Catalan to pay money up front to actually be in it. You know, for Catalan to defend a trophy that they hold at the moment, they were going to have to pay over the top because they might not bring enough fans over. Are they going to go and do the same to New York and Ottawa and Toronto again? You know, for me, it's just all a bit over the top, and I think we need to sort of realise, look, this is what we've got, this is what we do well, and let's expand it in this country by all means. I think expansion in this country is fantastic, and I think going to Catalan, and I would even say if Toulouse get into Super League, I wouldn't have too much of a problem with that.
Ooh.
Just going transatlantic, I just think is a bit too far. It's a bit too far.
Well, two very contrasting views here. Tell us what you think. Comment below. Like it if you like this video. I'll give it a dislike if you don't. And tell us your views on, is Super League going to be expanding and is it going to be a success?
Watch every game of the NRL, plus the grand final and state of origin from anywhere outside Australia, New Zealand or the Pacific Islands. Go to watchnrl.com and take the footy with you.